Rav Chaim, we have a very big schus today to hear shiur from Rav Ilson. I just would want to mention that many times the Rambam, when he talks about Masorah, he uses the phrase ish mipi ish mipi ish. And I think he wants to stress that in order to be sure that the Masorah is handed over properly, you really need two things. You need someone who really understood what he heard, and someone who also has the ability to give over with the utmost perfection. And we know one of the great Gedolim of the last generation was the Rav Yosef Levi Soloveitchik, had many Talmidim, but in my opinion, not only is there a select group that would really fulfill that concept of ish mipi ish mipi ish, that understood very well what the Rav was saying and doing, are able to hand it over to the next generation, that derech, that approach, that havana of the Rav. And certainly Rav Ilson is one of those outstanding individuals that we're zeicha to hear shiur from him today. I just want to add one other point. Rav Ilson was also very close with Rav Nissen Alpert, Zechut HaBracha, and I also was very friendly with Nissen Alpert, many years, very, very close with him. And anybody who knew of Nissen Alpert really knew he was a very special individual whose life was in Torah, and he's also able to give over the Masorah of Moshe and really give over with tremendous insight. So it's an extra source to hear shiur from Rav Ilson. And one of Rav Ilson's Talmidim is Rav Menachem Yosef. I just want to say a few words before we hear shiur.
The Mishnah in the sixth perek of Perek Yavos brings down a memra from Reb Meir, who says that Kol Osek B'Torah Lishma Zochel Dvarim Harbe. So everybody who's Osek in Torah Lishma is merits many things, and among those things is mentioned Anava and Yira. And it seems to be exactly the opposite of most other endeavors. Most other endeavors, when you get into it and you start to get a feel for it, a runner who's trying to run a marathon, before he starts running and he's out of breath after a mile, he's humbled by the person who could run the marathon. But Torah it's not so. It's not that when you get into it, you're able to do it, you become you're not humbled anymore. The more Torah that you learn, the more you get into it, the more you realize you don't know. I had the great privilege to learn under Rav Ilson. One of the things he mentioned many times was that many times in Torah, the more you know, the more you realize you didn't really know anything at all, and it's always a struggle. And that anava was really of Torah. That being humbled by Torah was really felt in his Beis Medrash, which we, me and my friends, had the privilege of studying in, and that really led us to the Rosh Yeshiva had created for us an environment of a standard of scholarship in the Beis Medrash, that we respect the Torah that we learn, and we respect it to an extent that if it's not up to standard, it shouldn't be said. You're really supposed to treat it with yira, the Torah that we learn. And that, along with intellectual honesty and bringing the level of Torah up to a level that is a standard for B'nai Torah, for Talmidim. And among the rebbeim that Rav Ilson had, Rav Nissen Alpert and Rav Yerucham Gorelik, Rav Michael Feinstein, and of course the Rav, we're extremely privileged to hear some of the Torah on our perek that we're learning this year, Zebor in Sanhedrin.
Let's start with a Mishnah in Perek Zebor. What I just want to do really is just do some reading in the Rambam, and just do some text work and see where it takes us and where it doesn't take us. The Mishnah in Sanhedrin on the Chavdal Romed Beis, V'elu heina psulim hamesachek b'kuvia v'amal v'beribis u'mafriche yoinim v'sirche shvius. So the psulim in this Mishnah, the Rambam points out, are what one would call Rosha D'Chomas Midrabanan. And it's some type of Rosha who's motivated by greed. Okay, he becomes this Rosha because his motivation is greed. And the Rambam, both in Pirush and Mishnayos and in Mishnah Torah, sets up for us clear categories that in Psuli Eidus, there are basically two categories. There's something called a Rosha by itself, and there's something called a Rosha D'Chomas. We have to understand why these are two categories, but the Rambam clearly in Pirush Mishnayos sets up this category, and in Mishnah Torah. In Pirush Mishnayos right over here, and in Mishnah Torah in perek Yud of Hilchos Eidus. Halach Aleph Beis Gimel Daled. The Rambam says in Pirush Mishnayos, he says he has two ikrim. There are two ikrim. One ikr is, he says, "V'ulai she'en yoytzim min hakolim mo'elu v'chulei." He says like this: "Lefi she'sefer ha'emes." That's Torah. Sefer ha'emes. Sefer ha'emes kora l'kol mechuyev malchus rosha. Anyone who's chayiv malchus is a Rosha. V'hu omrei v'hoya im bin hakeis a Rosha. Which is very important. We have to know what this pasuk is talking about. V'hizim l'kabel eidus Rosha. V'omrei al toshes yotcho im Rosha lios eid. Ubo b'kabola b'pirusha. We'll come back to this. But I just want to tell you, there's a very important phrase over here. Uba b'kabola b'pirushay. Okay, let me just explain what the words mean. It looks like, it looks like very innocent, but the Rambam is probably the one who set up a new category of looking at things. The Rambam in Pirush Mishnayos and in Akdoma and in Sefer Mitzvahs, in Shurish Beis, certainly in other places also, has set up in Torah Shabbal Peh, there's something we call Halacha Moshe Misinai. And he says there's another category of Kabbalah called Pirushim Hamukubolim Me Moshe Rabbeinu, which you've never heard of, okay? And if you look in Mishnah Torah, he doesn't use this word, Pirushim Mukubolim, these words, but he says it in a different language. He says, Mipi Hashmua Lomdu. And, you might have found these words in Mishnah Torah many times, in Pi Hashmua Lomdu, but you might never have asked yourself. You see, the problem is, when you see words, you take them for granted. Okay? And there's nothing to be taken for granted in Torah. The Rambam, I remember of Alpin Zichron Levochem, I mentioned him, he was asked to put out the Meiri on Baba Metzia, which he was got ready for publication when he was 26. And in that Domo, he writes that the Meiri in his Sefer Beis Bechira calls Rishonim not by name, but he he gives them keel titles. And he calls the Rambam Migdal HaMechabrim. And he asks the question, why is it in Chidusha Meiri, he says, Rambam, Ran, this, and that. And in this Beis HaBechira, he gives them titles. So he says that Beis HaBechira is a sefer psak. And in order to understand and how to paskin, we have to understand what the milas, what the great attributes of each one of the Rishonim are. And the Rambam is Gdol HaMechabrim. What does it mean, Gdol HaMechabrim, the great writer? Writing in the true sense of the word requires an exact expression and also putting everything in its proper place. And the Rambam, the way he writes it, the way he says it, where he puts it, why he puts it here and why he puts it there, you can learn tilim shalachas. The Gdol HaMechabrim calls this Pirush HaMakom Pi HaShmua. Mi Pi HaShmua, Pirushim Mekubalim Moshe Rabbeinu, is that Moshe Rabbeinu, as a Meseira of telling us something very different than Halacha Moshe Sinai. Halacha Moshe Sinai, the Rambam says in Pirush Mishnayos, is the quintessence of Torah Shebal Peh, completely removed from Torah Shebiksav. You will not find any remes of Halacha Moshe Sinai in Torah Shebiksav. In fact, when the Gemara in Brachos and in Eruvin says that the Halacha Moshe Sinai of shiurim has a remez in Kra of Eretz Chita, Se'ira, Geffen, Eretz Zeh, Shemen, Udvash, the Gemara says very clearly, Asmachta B'alma. There's no relationship between Torah Shebiksav, and this is pure, unadulterated Torah Shebal Peh. That's Halacha Moshe Sinai. The opposite is so in Pirush HaMekubal. Pirush HaMekubal is an interpretation of Torah Shebiksav. A Pirush, Kipshuto K'mashmo, a Pirush HaMekubal Mimoshe Rabbeinu. And we'll see later what the significance of this is. And that's the Ram says over here. That's what he's referring to. Uba b'Kabbalah b'Pirushay, to interpret this pasuk. Al Toshes Lot Rosha Eid. It's allowed. Even it says Liois Chomos Al Tosha Rosha Eid. V'im Sofad Malchus Chozel Liois Kosher Le'edus. Moshe Omer v'nikla Ochicha Kivin shenikla Hari Ochicha. Zeu Ika Echad. One Ika is a psul edus of Chiyuvei Malchus. For Ika Sheni shekol halokeach momoin shloi betzedek af al pi she'eno chayiv Malchus. He's not a pure Rasha, a Rasha who is Chayiv Malchus. Harize posel edus gon agam v'gazl, gam v'gazl are not Chayiv Malchus. Either because of lavnin tashumin or lavnin v'lasei, but he's still posel. V'mal v'ribis mitzad lekichas momoin shloi b'tzedek, taking money because of greed. Two different psuli edus. Ram also does the same thing in Mishnah Torah. Perek Yud Aloch Aleph Beis Gimel Dalet or Shoyim Psul Ne'edus Men HaTorah Shnema Al Toshes Yotcho Im Rosh Eliyos Eid Chomos Mipi HaShmua Lomdu Al Toshes Rosh Eid. Again, this Pirush HaMekubalim Mipi HaShmua. There are There's one place that I know of, one of my Talmudim pointed out, but I'm not getting involved, that the Rabbanon basically, usually the Pirush Shmuah is the Ram's phrase in Mishnah Torah of Pirushim U'Kabbalim Moshe Rabbeinu. Why the Ram changed the phrase, that's not in our discussion now, but whatever it is, he changed the phrase. Then he says like this. Ezo Rasha Koshav Avera Shechavim Lamalkus Zeo Rasha Apostle שהHaTorah Kol L'Mechuyev Malkus Rasha Shneim Vohim Bin HaKeis HaRasha וכולי או בעבירה שחרם המלכוס מן התורה הרי זה פוסל מן התורה. Then he continues and he says there's another apostle. Hanezboy b'chol mitzvah min HaTorah. Od yesh shom rishoyim she'im psum le'edus af al pi is an apology. Af al pi she'hein b'nei tashlumim v'einon b'nei malchus. It's not the pure Rasha. It's not a chayiv malchus. Hayu v'lekchim momoin she'eino shelehem b'chamos psulim shenema ki yokum eid chamos b'ish v'anaganov v'chamsonim v'chulei. Two types of psuli eidus, both in Pirush Mishnayos and in Mishnah Torah. There's a pure, unadulterated Rasha who's chayiv malchus, and then there's another type of Rasha who doesn't fulfill these categories. He's not chayiv malchus, however, he's posel because of chamos, greed, which you can look and find throughout. It's not only a problem in Jewish society, and much more greed. Then the Gemara Sanhedrin, Chav Zayin Amud Aleph. The Gemara used the word mumma, okay? Mem, vav, mem, reish. Let me just tell you as an aside, I remember when I studied Chulin by the Rav, the first thesis talks about Hilchos Eretz Yisrael. So he said that he heard from father in the name of the Zayda that the Yushalmi in Kodshim is a forgery. Okay? And how does he know it? Two guys. One, it quotes Hilchos Eretz Yisrael. So it's a Yushalmi, Hilchos Eretz Yisrael. But he says, the Hilchos Eretz Yisrael HaTorah Meikol. It's not Hilchos Eretz Yisrael. It's Hilchos Aleph Lamed. And Aleph Lamed, it starts off, Omar Yeshua mipi Moshe mipi Agvura. And the person made a mistake. Omar Yeshua, Aleph Yud, is the Hilchos Eretz Yisrael. But it's the HaTorah Meikol. And the Hilchos, quoting the Hilchos Eretz Yisrael, in this Yerushalmi, shows complete amaratzis. That's one. And he said the other proof is that since the Ksav Yad Yoshon, an old Ksav Yad, and it quotes the word Mumma, it's also Raya that it's a forgery. Because the word Mumma is an expression of senses. Because the real word is Meshumad. But they didn't like the word Meshumad. Because really, the truth is, when you say the bracha in the Gemara is called Birchas Aminim, okay? And it was censored. But if you look back at it, and you'll ask you, look at the Lam, we talk about slanderous and Russia, there's no word mentioned by Minim, okay? the bracha was censored, and really was a bracha against what the Gemara calls minim, what the censored Rashi says, Talmidei Yeshu. That's what Rashi says, it was censored. And the bracha started, V'lamu shumodim al tisikvo, v'chol aminim kregi ovedu, v'chol eveam chomei kresu, u'malchu zodan, which was Rome. Meir esake es Shabbos mageh, v'sachniv meir v'yomeinu. So it says in the Gemara by us, which was censored, Mumo oichel neveles. L'teovoi, divrei akol posel, lahachis abayam apostle, v'omar makosher. Abayam apostle, dahavalei rosha, v'achmono omar, al toshes rosha eid. V'omar makosher, rosha the chomas bin. There's no such thing as rosha per se, it's only rosha the chomas. Meis ve'al toshe rosha eid, al toshe rosha chomas, eid. Eilo gazlonim morleish b'shvuos. My love echad shvuosho v'echad shvuos momon. It means it's a rosha. Lo idim shvuos momon, and it's rosha the chomos. My shvuos, shvuos down. The hilchos of the Gemara ketiz the end hilchos kavos lebai. So comes the marit in a tshuva, and asks the following question. It's a tshuva, you can look at it in Chelik Beis, in Ebenezer, Siman Mem Gimel. His basic question is the following. Since the Rambam passed like Abaye, and it means that that is really what he's coming out and telling us, both in Pirush Mishnayos and Mishnah Torah, that there are two types of Rishoyim. There's the Harosha and a Rosha with a Chayiv Malkus, and there's also another Rosha of Rosha the Chomos. So L'cheira, if you would quote Shvois, which category should you put it under? You don't need to say that Shvois is a question of Shvois of mammon, of greed, but since Shvois Achayiv Malkus, both Shvois Shov and Shvois Sheker, and that you'll find in Tmur and other places that there are Gimel was Kilu, a Kabbalah. The Rambam says, Rambam quotes in Perek Aleph, of the Tmura, Halacha Aleph, Rambam Pishmul Lomdu, that the Gimel cases of LiveShiur Bomaisa, Nishba Meimo, Makalas Hashem, that even though the LiveShiur Bomaisa is Chayim Malkus, so it means that Shmua, she possible the Eidos under all circumstances. Comes the Rambam in Perek Beis of Hilchos Eidos, Halacha Gimel to Halacha Yud. Let's just try to understand what the question is, because the Rambam has, you see, there's one issue that you posel Eidos. Okay? The question is, Torah gives us the option of coming back into the fold. The question is, how is it that a person who's posel Eidos can become kosher? And that's the Rambam's dealing with in Perek Beis. Shnayim, Perek Beis, Halacha Gimel to Halacha Yud, Shnayim she'idol echod shu posel ba'aveira, me'elu aveirus bo shnayim v'idu she'osa tshuva v'chozer boy oy sheloka harei ze kosher. So it means Very simply, if you are Rasha, how do you become kosher? You did the Adam come and say you did tshuva, and you got Malchus. Okay? Komish nischayev Malchus bein she'osa tshuva bein she'loka bebezdin choyz lekashusa. Av sha'a psuli edus she'hem psulun mishum ma'oin she'chomsoi oy she'gozmoi af al pi she'shilmoi tzrichin tshuva v'arihem psulun עד שיודע שחוזו בהם מדרכו נורא. פסלו שתירה. שחוזו בהם מדרכו נורא. They had a rehabilitation. מהמוסאי חזור מערבי ריביס וריביס, משיקור שטוריסיהם, מהמוסאי חזור מסחם בקוביה, מהמוסאי חזור מפריחי ייינים, מהמוסאי חזור Soche Shviz Me Mosai Chazoras Hamoel Bishvua Mishiyovo Lebezdin She'ein Makir Noisei V'yoyim Lehem Chosherani O Yischayev Shvua Bebezdin She'ein Makir Noisei V'momon choshuv yishalem v'lo yetzer yishova. V'chein taboch, and he goes on, and he says also, v'chein eid zayma. So what does the Rambam say? See, clearly tells us that the psul of moel b'shmua, he puts it together with the category of the Gedolei HaMachabrim, together with the category of what? Of Rosh Hashanah. Correct? On the Beine Shoilam, on the Chashvua, Amor B'Shvua is the Haposhet HaRasha. Rosh Hashanah means Mammon. So he doesn't mean Mammon. He's puzzled because of the Poshet the Shvua, and he does an Aveira, the Shem Rosha, Mechayev Malchus. And that is the Maritz question. Why does the Rambam put a Moel B'Shvua in the category of Rosh Hashanah? It's a Poshet of Rosh. Is that clear, the question? That's the question. Okay. Everyone's clear? V'anir loima be'ezes Hashem Yisbarach. You can ask another question to Rambam. Let me ask you a question. An Eid Zaynei. Why is he possible Eidus? Yeah.
Sometimes it says Zama leads to Malchus. That's the.
What?
Sometimes it says Zama leads to Malchus.
But where does the Rambam quote Eid Zayman in perek Yud Beis of Hilchos Eidos? He talks about where he talks about Chazor b'Tshuva. Where did he quote it? What's the Chazor? Yes.
He's a sheker.
How? Which category is it? Rosh Hashanah or Poshet HaRasha? And bring me a proof of how you know that. Yeah.
Chamas.
How do you know it?
V'chein Eid Zomen.
And he puts it in the categories
V'chein.
of the chain of all the other categories, of all the other cases of Rosh Hashanah. Let me ask you a question. Which category should he be? What? Well, yeah, that's what he says. But which category should it be?
Should be in Chalas.
He puts it there, but which category should it be? Yeah?
It should be in the category of Russia.
Okay, now see, what I'm going to tell you, one thing you should know, one of the things that had the Baruch Hashem I had the schus of working on is a sefer called Igus HaGrid, which led between my Rebbe and his father. And one of the things that father sometimes wrote to him, Moshe Levi Soloveitchik, Hadvorim Tevim of Tzichet Od Raya or Raya. Torah is in as much as it can be proven. Okay, so he made a statement.
Okay.
The question is, prove it.
Right, because they have the ability to get malchus. Because they get whatever they try to do someone else. If they try to have someone else have malchus, that was what they were doing in court, then that's going to be the punishment. Therefore, they would be called Russia, not Russia, the Hamas.
Yeah, okay. But
Not enough?
Yeah. But I could claim, maybe fakir, the punishment is not because of Rosh, it's just the Teres is Kasha Zomam, and there's no relationship between what he did. But how do you know he's a Rosh? The answer is obvious. How does the Rambam know that a Rosh who's Chaim Malkus is Posel Eidus? What's his proof? Where is he quoted from?
I'll touch his right.
V'hoyo in bin ha'keis Rosh. What is this pasuk referring to?
The Russia.
Who is this bin ha'keis Rosh? Is it Chanei Zayimam? Was it taken from Rambam? The quintessence, the archetype of the person who's posel for Eidus b'Toras Rosha is doch the Eid Zayimim. So how can the Rambam say that he himself, who said that the Eid Zayimim was the posel of Eidus, because of Russia, he puts him in the category of Russia b'Chamas? It's a reasonable question, no? I'm not showing you something like this. It's a problem, no? So after the same question, which you can ask in the Rambam, Moral B'Shvuos, and Moral B'Shvuos should have been what? Should have been a portion of the Russia. The Rambam quotes him on the Russia the Chomos. Similarly, Eid Zayimam, which we know is the Chal portion of the Russia, he quotes him on the Russia the Chomos. Correct? So I would tell you the following. In fact, if you look in Pirush Mishnayos, the Rambam says an amazing thing. The Pirush Mishnayos, when he talks about eight Zayimim, if you read it carefully, you'll get every word. Aber Eid Zayimim, hari ze posel Eidis, lefi shepomim, שהוא מחויב malchus, ופומim שהוא מחויב momim. What does he mean by this? The Rambam is not telling you that it's not what they call Sanhedrin, a list of different things. What's he say? Lefi shepomim שהוא מחויב malchus, ופomim שהוא מחויב momim. What's the Rambam telling you? No, what would you say? What would you say? That's what's all about reading. What is it, the future pomim? What is it, pomim? What does he want to say? Yeah?
Maybe either way you go, he's still going to be puzzled for Eidus.
Either way. But the Kitza is, there are two reasons again. It's a Rambam. There are two reasons the Pasal in Eid Zayimim. Either because of a Posher Darosha for Chaim Malkus, or because of Mammon. Lefi Shepom, it's not standard, I'm telling you stories. So hear the word, each word. Lefi Shepom, Chaim Malkus, the Posher Darosha. And the Pom Chaim Momoy, Rosha Dachomus. Although it steht in Rambam that they took Psulim in Eid Zayimim. That's what he says. Yeah.
So Aval is going on both Ikarim?
I don't know Aval. What again? What?
So when he says Aval, this is Aval a Zomim. So is the Aval going on both Ikarim? No, so he writes it after his
Yeah, it's certainly going on both. That's it. He's telling you that it's both. He tells you that it's both. You see, the one of the main points in learning is text interpretation. You see, there is really two approaches to one I'm learning. I mean, there's something, if you say sometimes you come to a place, and you say, Ravina, Ravashi, for fine people, but ich bin Chochem also. And if I would be asked this question, how I would say it, and the question is, let me think about it, let's talk about it, and this and that, and somehow what you're trying to do as an expression of narcissism, you're putting your mind into the Gemara. Another way of learning is what's called text interpretation. Okay? The words of Avinu Avashi are the words of the Messiah. The words of the Mishenim are the way they interpreted the Messiah. Let's try to understand what they say instead of trying to understand how we think. So the question is, when the Rambam says the words Lefi Shepomim, this and Pomim that, he's trying to tell us something. But if you're so busy thinking about what you're thinking and now what I'm thinking, you might miss the words. And he's telling you there are two psulim in Eid Zayimim. Now, let me show you something. The Rambam in Hilchos Tayim V'Nitan, perek Beis, Halacha Tes and Yud. Mi shenischayev shvur, bein shel Torah, bein shel Divreihem, v'nishma v'notar, or nishma v'nifta, v'achkach bo olav edim, shul choshed ein shvosei, shenishba klum, v'yesh lebaldino lohitzi, miyodei mashetol v'chulei. Li'olam, kizeh donin l'choshud, ad sheyuka bebezdin, im hoyu olav edim, sheloko v'yasa tshuva, yamzel kashusei, bein le'edus, bein l'shvur. What does it mean, bein le'edus, bein l'shvur? He becomes not a choshed, right? For sure. What's le'edus? He becomes kosher le'edus. Okay. How does he become kosher le'edus? What's the Rambam says? Hilchos Tayim V'Nitan? And what category is that?
Russia.
Why say chomas?
Because before we just said, it's
Problem is, okay, good. This is the story. The question, what does the Rambam say here? You're working with preconceived notions, and you're reading into the Rambam what you think he should have said based on prior knowledge. Okay? What you have to do is, what does the Rambam say? Why do you say what you said?
Well, I think it could be a chomas because he said Bas Tshuva.
Anything? What did he say? He says Loko. What does the Rambam say in perek Beis about Malkus and Tshuva? Where is Malkus and Tshuva? Which case is it? What?
Russia.
A portion of the Russia. So the Rambam in Hilchos Tayim V'Nitan says Mal B'Shvur is the portion of the Russia. Rabbeinu Shalom, the same conclusion that we drew in terms of Eid Zayimim, we saw from Pirush Mishnayos, right? The same exact phenomenon we find what? We find also in Moel B'Shvuos. The Maggid Mishnah seems to say this clearly also there. If you look in Maggid Mishnah, I won't even bother you with that, okay? But I want to explain to you what's going on over here. And you'll also find this if you look in Bi'agra in Choshen Mishpot, Simon Tzadi Bey, Sifkot Lamed. He says, שדווקא שאין מחמס מורים וכן כאן בשבועס שוב ושבועס ביטול כיוצא אבל כפירוס מורים צריך שיעשה תשובה ואם יש אלה שלוקה ועושה תשובה דווקא כדינוי. And the Goin says basically each one depends upon its din, and the Goin is referring to a Pesif and Shulchan Aruch which is Lashon Rambam. What's happening? Let's just take back for a second, okay? The verbosity of the Rambam in Perek Yud Beis of Hilchos Eidos is amazing, okay? When he talks about the Poshet Rasha, he has one line of how he's Chayzer b'Tshuva. Malchus and Tshuva and Shalom HaYisrael. When he deals with the Rasha the Chomas, what does he do? This Rasha has this tshuva. This Rasha has that tshuva. This Rasha, mamish a list of 10 cases. I don't know if it's 10, 9, I didn't count them exactly. But he goes through a list of cases. So what does it mean? When he looked at the Gemara, the Ram saw that when it's a question of an Aveira, which is independent of greed, Chazal said a general type of tshuva. Period. Malchus, Tshuva, and Shalom Yisrael. Independent of the Isa. Independent of everything. However, when it's a question of greed, Chazal, with the Umidas, that in terms of Chazor b'Tshuva, we have to have an Umidas. On each Aveira, individual Aveira, what is necessary for Tshuva? Ma'afichiyonim have their type of tshuva. Ma'aviribis have their type of tshuva. Moel B'Shvuos have their type of tshuva. Ein Zemim have their type of tshuva. So the Ram says a very simple thing. True, it's a dover portion. Then Hein Moel B'Shvuos, Hein Ein Zemim have both categories of psul. However, a discussion and a description of the Chazor b'Tshuva of an Eid Zayman, who is an Eid Zayman of Malchus, or a Moel B'Shvuah who's not Machlas Mamon, is a very simple case because the general klal applies to everything. What does he have to do? Malchus and tshuva. However, the Gemara says that a Rasha, the Chamos, has its in particular tshuva. Right? So the tshuva, if it happens to be a case of an Eid Zayman, who's a Rasha, the Chamos, has its particular Chazor b'Tshuva. And if it's a Moel B'Shvuah, has its particular Chazor b'Tshuva. There's no stira. Or the Ram says exactly what you expect him to do. Or the Chatudinim. Okay. Now. Next. I can go on and push and bring a watch at this. I'm going to go on next to talk about, I can continue? Okay, good. There's a diktuk in Rambam, or an issue in Rambam. Let's talk the following. Listen. There is a question whether a Rasha what is posel the edus is a psula guf. Stam, the Torah doesn't give him a hechshel edus, but there's no particular problem with his edus. And Isha is posel because she's posel, not because we think that Isha is going to mishakeh. Oh no, the psul rosha, because we are choshesh that he's a shakren. Why is a rosha posel edus? So the fact is, the Mugyeset says, it's in Hejin Heim Beis, very clearly, that a Rosha is puzzle because he's puzzled. And another Eid Echon will be kosher. No Chash Meshach, it's a Psula Guf. And the Kseis goes like that, and Sefer Kseis HaCheshen, Simon Menvov, Sivkot Yud Zayin, he quotes this in Mugyeset. However, it's Nira Ba'olil that according to the Rambam, this is not correct. Because the Rambam says in Hilchos Gerushin, perek Yud Beis, Halacha Yud Zayin, V'chein apostle ba'averim min HaTorah, im bo lahoyed, Li'isha, Shemez Baila, Eino Nemon! Why shouldn't it be Nemon? If it's a Psula Guf, he should be Nemon. V'im hoya masich lefi tumoy Nemon. Ein ze pochas min agoy. Aber possibly divrei Nemon le'edus. The Russia, even though a kolov is the kosher for edus Isha, a Russia, the Rambam says is possible. Du haben noch gesagt, in perek Aleph Halacha Tesvav, ואפילו אישה ואבן ושפחה, ופוסל לאדס, ועבירה, מדברי ספר, ואפילו קורב, נאמון לאדס סייטה, להויד, או להושי זינצה, ותעשה לביילה. But it's only a Rosh D'Rabbanan, but a Rosh D'Raisa is not good, because of Chash Meshach. And the Rambam says it very clearly in perek Yudal and Hilchos Edus Halacha Hey. Misha Yodei Lechaveru be'edus, ad shelo nasa gazlan, hu eino made al ksav yodoi. Aval im huchsat ksav yodoi shebeshtar zeh bebezdin, koin mishyasa gazlan, hali zeh shtar kosher. V'chein im nasa chosnoi, hu eino made al ksav yodoi, aval chein me'idin. Afal pishel huchsat bebezdin, el acha shenasa chosne ha'izeh kosher. She'eino dime ha'psul ba'aveira le'psul b'krevo. She'apsul ba'aveira choshut bezayif. Aveira is a shashakrim, and korba is a sepik zeres apostle to us. Now, if this is correct, these Dukim in Rambam, I want to tell you something. When I was studying, I was zeichet to study Sefer Mitzvahs, my Rebbe, Zichron Levacha, in a small group, whatever the group was, whatever. So he said, while we were learning, he made the following observation. There's a difference in the Lashonos, in the Rambam. The Rambam, Rosha and Korev, is not only a psul in the Torah, but is a law, there's a schora in Minyan HaMitzvahs. The Rambam has an schora in Minyan HaMitzvahs from a Rosha, and a schora in Minyan HaMitzvahs from a Korev. However, there's a difference in Rosha. Steht das in Rambam. Reish Pei Vav, v'amitzvah Reish Pei Vav, כי שהיזה עדיין של לקבל עדוס בעל עבירה ומאסיס על פי עדוסה. However, when it comes to Korov, he says, כי שהיזה עדיין מקבל עדוס הקודם, כסוסם או כסוסם, או כסוסם או כסוסם, he doesn't add ומאסיס Al Pi Edusai. So what does the Rambam want? So he said, da steht in Rambam, the love of Rasha and the love of Korov is Cholok B'etzem Yisei Dinai. Or that the love of Korov is the push of the Kabbalah's Edus. The love of Rasha is a love of Ivus Hadin! Of turning the din and making improper psak. Paskening based on a choshev l'zayev, a choshev l'shaker. And therefore, the Rambam says, in the love of Rasha, he says, me'asis, because the Isa is the Ivus Hadin, because he's the choshev l'zayev. When it comes to a korov, there's no choshev l'shaker. It's just the push of the Kabbalah's things. He said another nafkamina could be that if the lav is just the push of the Kabbalah, and it's not the asiya al pi dvorov, so you can imagine that an isha should have been a problem because there's a push of the Kabbalah from a korov. But if it's asiya al dvorov, there's no asiya over here because you can't. There's no Kabbalah. There's no edus. Okay, say it. I have a problem over here. The question you have to ask yourself, it's nice. Okay? Nice diuk, nice ramsh, that's very fine. The question is, the Rambam's writing Sefer Mitzvahs. Do you look at him, kiu, as Morin Levuchim, telling you, timing, why the Torah passes? What's in the Geya? Why is he telling you? When he talks about a lav in Minyan HaMitzvahs, he's telling you numbers, that this is a mitzvah in Minyan HaMitzvahs. Why does the Rambam find it necessary to tell us that the lav of Rasha is a lav of Ivus Hadin? Why is he interested in this? What's the purpose? What is it all about? Rabbi Sai. Hanio loima bas beza Hashem Yisborach. And this, I will only be mekatzer. Okay, and I'll give you the ma'amokim for it. My Rebbe has a piece in Igus Hagrid Alevi in Hilchos Mamre. He talks about Pirushim HaMukubal MeMoshe Rabbeinu. And he says that the same way, he says, like we say in when one Amira disagrees with another Amir, we say, Eilu ve'elu divrei Elokim chai. Okay? So it means Rabbi used to say that if you're going to have and learn Beis Shammai and say Birchas HaTorah, it's not a Bochel of HaTorah. Because it is Torah. Just Tachra is not like that. Eilu ve'elu divrei Elokim chai. In Tersha B'Ksav, we say, Ayin Ponim LaTorah. You can learn Pshat like this, you learn Pshat like this, okay. However, he said, when there's a Pirush HaMukuba BeMoshe Rabbeinu, one is not allowed to interpret Pshuto Shel Mikvah in a different way. Or that the Pirush HaMukum Moshe Rabbeinu, that becomes Tersha B'Ksav. or that's the pshat, or that's the pshuto shel mikra. Be frank with you, when we're putting out the sefer, I wanted to put a footnote there, but it violated the convention of the footnotes. Iyun, Rambam, Shirish Beis of Sefer Mitzvahs. What did I want that footnote for? Because the Rambam does a very strange thing there. The Rambam says that Yud Gimel Midas Shatir Nidreshes Behen and not in Minyan Mitzvahs. What he calls Mitzvah Sefer. Yud Gimel Midas. So some Rishonim Mochisha that are meant that Yud Gimel Midas is not a Deraisa. Chas v'sholem. Chas v'sholem, Rambam never meant that. But he says Yud Gimel Midas is not in Minyan Mitzvahs. But he says Pirushim HaMukubalim Me Moshe Rabbeinu are in Minyan Mitzvahs. What does it mean? Because Minyan Mitzvahs is not the purview of what I want to talk about now. The Rambam is Machadesh that Minyan Mitzvahs is a Minyan of Torah Shebeksav, is a Minyan of Pshuto Shel Mikra, Droshes of Yud Gimel Midas Shatir Nidreshes Behem, and not Pshuto Shel Mikra. Pirushim Mukubalim Me Moshe Rabbeinu is the Pshuto Shel Mikra, that is Minyan Mitzvahs. That's why I wanted to make this footnote. And that which my Rebbe said in the Chusmamud, the whole Shirish Beis is opened up wide. Now, if that's correct, that's the Ram says over here. Because you look in the Lav of Rasha, the Ram says, and he starts off, V'omo yis'ale al toshes yotcho im Rasha liyos eid chomos. What does it mean? The pshuto shel mikra, without the pirush makubal, is what? Al toshes yotcha im rosha liyos eid chomos. Ivus hadin. You should not take a rosha for an aid because it will end up liyos chomos. That there will be chomos over you. Or the Ram is only telling you over what the pshuto shel mikra is. Or that's the Lav. It's not Stam telling you time your mitzvahs. He's telling you just take Torah. Then the Ram goes out of his way, and then he says the same thing that he said in Pirush Mishnayos, Mishnah Torah Yashmua. He says like this. He says, after he shall kabel edus ba'al aveira me'asris al pi edus u'om yisale al tosh rosha yotcha im rosha liyos eid chomos bo beferish al toshes rosha eid bo beferish. What's before beferish? There's also pirush makubal over here. Al toshes chomos aid, al toshes rosha aid, al toshes chomos aid. He says you read the pasuk, ki'ilu it says, the pasuk says liyos aid chomos. It says you break up the pasuk. Al toshes rosha aid, al toshes chomos aid, rosh chomos aid. That means Oto state here in the Pirush Makubal has told you that there are two psula edus in Russia. There's a Russia to Chomas and a Poshet to Russia. Yeah?
Why then does the Rambam seem to indicate that those are derabanan? Those are midivrayim.
Who said midivrayim? There's no midivrayim.
By Russia to Hamas?
That
Yisachar V'Kuvia and...
No, those, because the Avera is not... He says there's a Rosh Hashanah Deraisa.
Oh, Rosh Hashanah.
The Chom is the Rabbanon. That's a Divrayim for Sheitzach. That's the Rambam very clear about that in Mishnah Torah and Pirush Mishnayos. He says, the Mishnah, Ki'ilu, it's a very strange thing in the Mishnah. The Mishnah assumes, we know everything. We know there's a Rosh D'Raisa and a Rosh D'Chomas that tells us, Derech Agav, there are Rosh D'Chomas D'Rabbanan. That's all the Mishnah is telling you. It's Ki'ilu, the last, everything else. And the assumptions we know everything. We're just not that. Just don't know where the time is. We have more time.
A couple minutes.
Okay, I shouldn't bring a watch. I'm sorry. I thought there would be a clock or something. I don't like to look at my phone. You like to keep in time. I don't know. Rabbi say. You just tell me when I should stop. Okay, say it. They asked to take a little bit of health or whatever it is. So let me just show you something. The Rambam in perek Gimel Hilchos Eidos, Hilchos Deis, perek Gimel Hilchos Deis, Halacha Beis and Gimel. So Cha'odom Shechaven Liboy. So Cha'odom Shechaven Liboy. I didn't give out Mama Kohen. He told me not to. Okay. So Cha'odom Shechaven Liboy. V'chol ma'asov kulom leida es Hashem baruch hu bilvad. Every action man does should be to know God. V'yeh shiftoi b'kumoi v'diburoi hakol umazeh adover. Everything he does should be to know God. Skipping a little bit. V'chein kishiyochal v'yishter v'chulei lo yosim b'libo elasas dvorim elu kidei lehonos bilvad. He shouldn't eat because he thinks, oh, wow, what a tasty thing, wow. Ad shenimtza she'eino ochel v'sheisa ela hamosik l'cheich elo v'chulei elo yosim al liboi sheyochal v'yishteh כדי להבריס גופוי ואיבורו בלבד. לפי כך לא יאכל כל שכיח מסווה ככלב וחמור. The Rambam says people who eat because they want tasty food, which is American society. Like a kelev and a chamor. אלא יאכל דבר מועיל לגוף. עם מורים עם מסוקים. ולא יאכל דבר מרויים לגוף, אף על פי שהן מסוקים לכך. Then I'm skipping a little bit in the Rambam. המנהיג עצמו על פי הרפואה, אם סומא ליבו שיהיה כל גופו מאיבוריו שלמים בלבד, שיהיה לו בונים, oisim malachtem ameil. He wants to be healthy, that his children should be good workers. They'll be strong. Tarzan. Ein zu derech teva! That's time to be healthy. Eliyosim al liboy, she'e gufoy sholem v'chozek, kedei she'tehei nafshoy yeshara. Ladas es Hashem, to know God. V'chulei, skipping a little bit. V'nei shemachshavte b'chol, kedei she'yimse tzrocho, ad she'e gufoy sholem, lavur es Hashem, v'afilu b'shoshu yoshem. He says, the pshat is, he always thinks he's doing it for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Nimsis sheina shaloi avoida lamokum Baruch Hu. V'al inyan zeh tzivu chachamim v'omu v'chol ma'asecha yu shel Hashem shamayim v'omoy v'shomoy shloimu b'chachmosay v'chol do'achecha do'eyu v'yashe ochosecha. What's the Hamah b'chol do'achecha do'eyu v'yashe ochosecha? There's a Gemara in Brachos, which offhand Mo uses a few words, and it's very strange. The Gemara says in Brachos, Samar Chimel and Aleph, Dosh Bal Kapora. A Drosha. Dosh Bal Kapora. Ezo Parsha Ktana. A small Parsha. Shekol Gufei Teira Tluyim Bo. Or that the Kola Teira Kula is Tluyim in this Parsha Ktana. Gufei Teira. Gufei Teira is Teira Shebeksav, as the Rambam says in Cherish Beis. Gufei Teira is Tluyim Bo. But the ganze Teira, Kol Gufei Tluyim. What's this Parsha? Sagt der Gemara, B'chol do'achecho do'eyu, v'uyashe ochisecho. Or the Kol HaTorah Kula is Tluyim in this Parsha. What does the Rambam see in this? How does he know this? The emissaries. The emissaries like this. Rambam in the Vuchim, in perek Gimel, Chelik Gimel perek Nun Aleph. He says this perek is really the summation Kedmus Chsima on Moreh Nevuchim, how one is masik the amitis amuchenes b'Hashem yis'al achas hasagosai, how he gets to understand the Rebbeinu Shalom, to be with the Rebbeinu Shalom, live with the Rebbeinu Shalom, live with Hashgacha. Okay, Ha'or. This is the famous Ha'orah of the Rambam at the end of Moreh Nevuchim. Haloi bi'alti l'cho shezeh haseichel asher shefa oleinu me'Hashem yis'al hu adibuk asher beinenu u'beinot. It's almost a symbiotic relationship between man and the Rebbeinu Shalom. As much as man lives with God, God lives with man. And he has a discussion about that. He says, V'da he says, the general case is that when a person eats, he's not thinking about the Rebbeinu Shalom, he's thinking about the good food. V'lu ha'yisa ha'chochem sheb'nei odem ba'mitas ha'chochma alakis. If you reach the dal that he's supposed to reach, shetifna machshavtaho lemachol tzorich or li'esek tzorich kvar pesachta dibuk. And you shouldn't, this is what shouldn't be. Kvar pesachta dibuk ahu asher beincha u'bein HaKodesh Baruch Hu. You're not living with the Rebbeinu Shalom. You're thinking about your own personal needs. V'ein cha'imoi oz v'chein hu ein cha'imcha. Since you're not with the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Rebbeinu Shalom is not with you. Ke'yachas hahu asher beincha u'bein kvar nifsak v'pol lahu. And he says v'ziu mimenu al tifnu el midaitchem. V'yoma David shivisi Hashem menevdi somid mimini bal emoy. It means shivisi Hashem menevdi somid, that when you eat, you're eating with the Rebbeinu Shalom. Sagt the Rambam, v'yirli ki asher chay v'yois elu ha'abo ha'oindim al tach l'zeh ha'shleimus eitzel Hashem. Of the 4 amudim from Klal Yisrael reached this level. V'hashgachosu aleim masmedes, and therefore the hashgacha on them was always. V'afilu be'esis askom lahabis momon, when they were at work, and the flock got slim be'es hamire v'abulis hadomo v'anhogis habayis hoyi minei shetachlis kavanosom. Hoyisa b'chol ha'maasim ha'im liskarev el Hashem Yisborach Kiyu v'godo. Now he says an amazing sentence. Ki tachlis kavanosam. What was the general approach of Avram, Yitzchak, V'Yaakov, and Moshe Rabbeinu. What was it? What was Tachlis Kavanosam? What were they looking for? Kol Yemei Chayim, or their whole life. What were they? How? Lahamsi Ummah, to create a nation. But what is that nation? What were they out to do? Sheteda Hashem v'tavdeu, a nation which knows the Rabboni Shem. Ki yodativ leman asher yitzav ve'ezbono ve'ezbeisei achrov. Tachlis kavanosam is an ummah which is Yeda Hashem. And that's what the Rambam says. That's what the Rambam says. In Mishnah Torah, he says, that you do it l'shem Hashem, k'dei shelo yechle v'lo yuchal lavres Hashem v'uchele, nimses shein shelo avoid l'mokom v'al inyan zeh oma chochma Siva Chom Chomasi L'Shem Shemayim U'She'oma Shloimoi B'Chochmosoi B'Chol Do'achecho Do'eu Yash Ochosecho. Or the B'Chol Do'achecho Do'eu Yash Ochosecho is that to live with the Rabbeinu Shalom, to live with the Shivisi Hashem L'Negdi Summit, to live with the Rabbeinu Shalom. Or those is the Tachlis! And that's why this Parsha Ketana, that's a Dashvat Kapola. Parsha Ketana. V'kol gufei Torah tulin bo. B'chol do'achecha do'eu. V'yasho chasecha. Two people are sitting at the table, are eating. One is living the Rabbeinu Shalom. One is part of the Ummah that the Avram, Yitzchak, V'Yankov, and Moshe Rabbeinu were dreaming about, wanted to create. V'lachte b'drochov. Constantly living the Rabbeinu Shalom. That's the person who eats in order to be Oved Hashem, in order to be healthy. The person who eats because he's thinking about, wow, this is great. The pizza and the Coca-Cola. Wow, I'm Gramish. Who knows what's going to happen? That is not B'chol do'achecha do'eu v'yashe ochiseh. Rabbi say we should all be zeicha that all are meisim, b'chol do'achecha do'eu, v'yashe ochisecha.
You should eat for Hashem and do everything for Hashem. What? Are you saying that they Hashem have a mindset that they should be healthy to be able to serve Hashem?
Again, what? When a person goes to sleep, the Rambam says, he should sleep in order to be restful, he should be able to serve Hashem. He should eat in order to be serving Hashem. So the eat, just with the same physical performance, but what he has in mind, it's a whole different story.
Okay, but can't you also? So you're a healthy person, obviously, is able to serve Hashem better because he has more.
That the Rambam, see, the two different issues. I stopped because I didn't want to go overtime. I have no clue. I'm sure that I'm overtime. The Rambam has two different categories. If you look at perek Dalet, he talks in Halacha Aleph in Hilchos Deis. He has a person eating properly in order to be able to serve Hashem. But in perek Gimel, he's saying the etzem eating properly is serving Hashem. There are two things going on at the same time. And he has two reasons really why a person should eat properly. In perek Dalet, he says in order to serve Hashem, she'efsha, she'yeda, or she'yovin, shum dova, if his goof is not healthy, that's perek Dalet. And perek Gimel, b'chol do'achecha do'eu, that the etzem pu'ula is avodas Hashem.
Because of the ends?
Not because of the end. That's what we're saying. He doesn't say because of the ends. Because that's his kavanah.
Yeah.
Two different things. That's what Rambam puts. There's one din at the end of perek Gimel, and one din at the end at the beginning of perek Dalet. It all goes into v'lachte b'drochov. That's what I wanted to point out to you. The truth is, in Sefer Charedim quotes the B'chol Do'achecha Do'eu as a mitzvah say b'dibur Kabbalah. But it can't be such a thing. So, a mitzvah no mashoy l'chadish dovo. That's the cheterinalati moisef al teva. So the answer is, as my Rebbe said over, that that say he asked father once, what is the purpose of Nevi'im? So he says, the Nevi'im, he said from father, Nevi'im are the Bailim on the Meforish V'lach B'drocha, the Midas V'HaKodesh Baruch Hu, Ma'alachum, Afat Tehirachum. What is, it's really, if you look at the Rambam carefully, it's Mahu Nikra Rachum, because he's not Rachum, it's just we appears to us. Nikra Rachum, Afato Heye Rachum. Mahu Nikra Chanun, Afato Heye Chanun. And the B'chol Do'achecha Do'eu is also a way of V'lach B'drocha. The Nevi'im are telling you how to live with the Rabbeinu Shalom V'lach B'drocha. Yes? Anything else?
What are some of the? What would you say to a boy who's trying to be healthy, keep motivated, or maybe some of the food groups that they should try to stay away from, or something like that? I don't know.
Well, the main category is fast foods. Okay. Let me tell you something. Okay. Just give you. It's basically the Rambam says in Moed Nevuchim, in Chelek Gimel, perek Yud Beis, that man complains there's so much evil in the world. Okay? So many people are dying, so many people this and that. The Rambam says, if you make a cheshbon, and my set probably is based on Yerushalmi, I think in the 14th perek in Shabbos, okay? The Rambam says that basically, if you count the number of people die in earthquakes, okay, earthquakes, tornadoes, okay. Man against man, fighting in wars, is more. But the biggest category, the largest category, is man against himself. How he eats, and how he sleeps, and how he drinks, and how he conducts his life. Man is responsible for his fate, and a person lives in a way which is contrary to his health. He cries against the Rebbeinu Shalom, but he who did it, and that's what Yerushalmi says. 99 out of 100 people die is b'pshir. What they say, Yerushalmi. Okay. So I'll give you an example. There's something called, I'm not getting a trans facts, plain facts, okay? In 2,000 years ago, okay, when people ate in a different way, okay, the relationship between omega-3 and omega-6 was about 1 to 1 and 1 to 2, okay? In the diet of general society, it's 1 to 30, okay? And among frum society, it's 1 to 60. Why is it 1 to 60? Let's listen. Shabbos morning, you have your child. Okay. And you want to have this, this ice cream. But the power of ice cream, with riches or whatever it is. So, the amount of omega-6 and the wrong type of fatty acids, okay? It's okay to have 1 to 1, 1 to 2, but 1 to 60, what you're ending up is what they found in the Korean War when they did autopsies on American soldiers, that a young man at the age of 18 already is the beginning of arterial sclerosis. Okay? Another example of how to know where you stand in the world. There's something called the pear shape and something called the apple shape. Okay? Apple shape in the human and male body is pre-insulin resistance problems. The problem is like this. The Buddha gave you, let's finish over there when I get, there's sugar in the blood. Okay, so what happens is when you have sugar, and if the sugar goes too high, it's not good for you. So the Bnei Shalom gave us the pancreas, and the pancreas, the R's, the Langhans, and just shoots in insulin to lower the. When a person has a high glucose, he gets a high. So listen, he takes his Coke, okay, and he gets his high. But after a while, it goes down because the insulin comes in and the troops come in to knock it down. So he needs another high. So another one. 20 years of this, the body doesn't respond anymore. And that's where insulin resistance comes in. Disease, whatever it is, most diseases of American society, whether it's, I'm not saying all, the Rambam's Lashon is called Tachluim. The Lashon Amo in the Nevuchim is all illnesses is a reflection of how you eat. Cancer, heart disease, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, diabetes, metabolic issues, whatever it is, man is responsible for his fate. And I want to tell you something, okay? I don't want to get involved in this now, but I'll just tell you one sentence, 2 or 3 sentences. Rav Moshe has a tshuva, which I never understood, and I certainly, for who is, I say, who am I to take issue with it? He discusses the possibility of smoking, you should say, Shem P'sorim Hashem. Okay? And if you look in Rambam, there's a mistake. I don't know who might say that. The Rambam quotes Iyun of health in 2 different places in Mishnah Torah. He quotes in Tzveich Shmiras HaNefesh, and he quotes in Hilchos Deis. With Tzveich Shmiras HaNefesh, he talks about Maikeh, and he talks about Golui, different things. Why does he quote? Why Shmiras HaNefesh is also Shmiras HaNefesh? The answer is that in Tzveich Shmiras HaNefesh, he's talking about things which you might do which can cause you to die immediately. Okay? If this golui, this mind which you magulin, there's an eris v'nochash over here, so it might kill you. So that's Shmiras HaNefesh. In Hilchos Deis, he's not talking about dying, he's talking about getting sick and your whole constitution, and over years and years and years and years. If you find the 4 times that the Gemara quotes Shem P'sorim Hashem, it's all in issues that he may do something that he's going to die. So he's the Chapesi, and there's a Shem P'sorim Hashem. On constitution and the way one runs their life, exercise, diet, that the Gemara never said Shem P'sorim Hashem. Cigarettes! The issue is not I smoked a cigarette, I'm going to drop dead on the spot, maybe. Depends on what type of cigarette it is. Maybe it's like a, boom, maybe what happened, I don't know. But the issue of cigarettes is the way my goof is going to interact with the cigarettes over years and years and years. It's not Hilchos Shmiras HaNefesh. It's Hilchos Deis. In Hilchos Deis, the Gemara never said Shem P'sorim Hashem. Batzlach.
We all enjoyed it. And Hashem in the future to discuss the